Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Nicola Barreto. Let's take a look at the headlines. Canadian Governor General on official visit to Trinidad and Tobago. Labour Minister assures government's commitment to adherence and implementation of international labour standards. And in sport, boxing Bonanza gives fight fans a glimpse of the local talent. Thank you for joining us to our top story. Canada commemorates 50 years of relations with this country. Part of this involves a visit from Governor General David Johnson and his wife, Her Excellency Sharon Johnson, as they join Trinidad and Tobago in celebrating its 50th anniversary of independence. The pair arrived at the Piarco International Airport and was greeted by Prime Minister the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, along with His Excellency President George Maxwell Richards. The Governor-General was joined by a contingency of dignitaries, including Canada's Minister of State of Foreign Affairs, Diane Ablonchi, who is expected to accompany the couple on several meetings with local ministers and NGOs. The visit comes on the heels of signage of a trade agreement between the two nations last month, when Prime Minister the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar met with Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper at the 6th Summit of the Americas. The delegation is expected to depart on Wednesday, May 2nd. Labour, Small and Micro Enterprise Development Minister the Honourable Errol McLeod is assuring that government is committed to the adherence and implementation of international labour standards, such as the enhancement of social protection, which he says will help to prevent accidents in the workplace. Minister McLeod was speaking at the Occupational Safety and Health Authority's launch of National Safety Week. Verna Barrett has the story.
Promoting safety and health in a green economy. This was the theme of the Occupational Safety and Health Authority's launch of National Safety Week, where Labour Minister the Honourable Errol McLeod is announcing that the awareness-raising campaign is intended to focus international attention on emerging trends in the field of occupational safety and health and on the magnitude of work-related injuries, diseases and fatalities worldwide. As a member of the ILO, Minister McLeod says the government of Trinidad and Tobago is fully committed to the achievement of its ultimate goals of industrial relations transformation that would lead to improvement in the quality of life of all citizens.
This commitment, among others, is demonstrated by the establishment of the Occupational Safety and Health Authority and the Occupational Safety and Health Agency. Both entities hold the responsibility for the promotion, institutionalization, and enforcement of the Occupational Safety and Health Act 2004 as amended.
Minister McLeod says included in the government's developmental plan is its international commitment to the adherence and implementation of international labour standards, such as the enhancement of social protection, one of the 4 pillars of the decent work agenda of the ILO. He also made mention of the ILO's definition of green jobs.
Green jobs as decent, which contributes directly to reducing the environmental impact of enterprises, economic sectors, or the economy as a whole by reducing energy and resource consumption, reducing emissions, waste, and pollution, and by preserving or restoring ecosystems.
The Labour Minister says government recognizes the increasing importance of a knowledge-based society that promotes the importance of the micro and small enterprise sector to this country's sustainable progress and wealth. He says government remains committed to tripartite partnership in showcasing the interconnectedness between a green economy, occupational health and safety, and their combined value to government's wider agenda of industrial relations reform. He says the memory of those who lost their lives from accidents in the workplace must serve to ensure that better measures are implemented in order to avoid such incidents in future.
The lives of those mentioned should never be forgotten. The lessons learned from their deaths must serve as a reminder of the value of human life and the need for us as a nation to work towards improving health and safety on a national level. It is only natural that we will face stumbling blocks along the way, but the memories of those lost should serve as the impetus for our steadfast efforts.
Verna Barath, News 4.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us.
Homo sapien, we'll call him Mark. It spends its days trying to attract a mate. Success. What follows is a series of celebratory actions unique to this species. Every Homo sapien has their own way of displaying themselves to attract a female. But things don't go according to plan.
Where the water gone?
No water, no love. Pay your water bill today.
The Water and Sewage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Water security for every sector. Deliver it. Sustain it.
There's a spark of greatness in each of us. That spark is called personality. Individual gifts and talents provide the fuel to set that spark ablaze. Each child has the right to an education which values their personality and nurtures their talents, while teaching them to be respectful to their parents and their cultures.
Carjacking has become very prevalent in recent times. Certain makes of vehicles are more preferred targets for criminals. When approaching intersections or junctions, ensure that all doors are locked and windows are wound up if possible. Remember, crime prevention is everyone's business. A message from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Welcome back. Housing and the Environment Minister, Dr. the Honorable Ruderal Mulnal, says a social dialogue committee will be created to educate employees and employers on workers' rights. Housing Minister Dr. Ruderal Mulnal made the announcement at a stakeholder update commemorating International Workers' Day at the Hilton Trinidad. Verna Barath has the story.
Minister of Housing and the Environment, Dr. Ruderal Mulnal, is assuring that steps have been taken to develop decent work and worker protection rights in this country since the People's Partnership took office. Dr. Mulnal was providing an update on labor and industrial relations, where he announced that some 25,000 workers are employed under his ministry.
We have estimated in our ministry that we would have over 25,000 employees, and particularly at the lower rung because of our work in the communities of the HDC, because of our work in the CPEP organization and elsewhere. 2 years ago, before May 2010, in our campaign, we did make a commitment that if it is that we will return to office, we would take steps to ensure that workers are protected, that they are aware of their rights, that we develop the concept of decent work, social dialogue, and worker protection. And upon entering office, we sought to give expression to those concepts, and we sought to deliver on that promise.
Dr. Mulnal says the ministry embarked on the Social Dialogue Initiative since it is the host ministry for various labor-intensive programs. He's also outlining measures which have been put in place by government to deliver more attractive packages to workers.
While we have moved aggressively to increase the minimum wage, we have moved to increase maternity protection legislation, as you know, a few days ago. We have enhanced the compensation for police officers, for example, the $1,000 bonus and so on. While we have taken steps to deal with the tangible delivery in terms of money and compensation and so on, we also had to work on the other side, which is to promote human rights, worker protection, dialogue, and empowerment of workers. Since we believe as a principle that while we compensate fairly, we must also educate and seek to increase and enhance the quality of work life.
The Housing and the Environment Minister says Employee Relations Specialist Robert Giuseppe will be leading the ministry's efforts to comply with the decent work agenda set by the International Labour Organization.
And we were very fortunate several months ago to recruit in our ministry Mr. Robert Giuseppe, former trade union leader in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, who has spent many decades in the labor movement, but who has also spent a lot of time at the industrial court and in the international community, particularly the International Labour Organization and related bodies, which has as its primary mandate the promotion of decent work, social dialogue, and worker protection. Mr. Giuseppe was charged with this responsibility of working within the ministry to ensure that all work-related programs and labor-intensive programs benefit from the knowledge and principles of dialogue, participation, and protection of workers.
Mr. Giuseppe says social dialogue was necessary due to the lack of sufficient union representation for laborers. He adds that workers should be trained and educated so that they can be part of the transformation. He indicated that the next phase of the project will include meetings with community members who receive services from CPEP. Verna Barath, News 4.
While many flock to Mayaro for the sun, sand and sea as they seek relaxation, many do not know that these were the shores that welcomed many of Trinidad's colonists and hold the rich history of our country. It is this historian Dr. Michael Anthony sought to enlighten its now residents with as a national thrust of Trinidad and Tobago took its tour to the rural eastern village of Mayaro. Kimberly Ramkalawan reports.
It's considered to be one of the most rural areas in Trinidad, Mayaro. But did you know that the village situated in the eastern side of Trinidad holds a great deal of our Twin Islands Spanish history? According to historian Dr. Michael Anthony, who also happens to be a native of the area, Mayaro was named after a Mayan plant which does not exist today. These were just some of the informative tidbits historian Dr. Michael Anthony shared with residents in Mayaro during the launch of the National Thrust of Trinidad and Tobago towards preservation of historical artifacts in the area. It was this he opened with, as a renowned historian noted. It was the Spanish Capuchin priest who arrived in the eastern settlement of the Arawaks with the aim of converting inhabitants to the Roman Catholic faith. He says this is what makes the beach village unique, as several of these establishments still exist today, and if properly preserved will mark a centenary in 2016.
The church at Mayaro and San Jose had never been moved from where they were. I mean, from where they were on the premises, if you like, of the mission church. So those things that is such a precious historical happening. And I was very sad a while ago when I mentioned the church to someone, and he said to me, yes, but it will soon be taken down, soon be demolished. I was waiting to get here so that the National Trust people can hear this. This ground is sacred ground.
But while Mayaro is seen as sun, sea, fishing and the pulling of saints today, it was this enticing view and easy access to transport along the sea which facilitated the island's first steamer to colonizers looking to capitalize on the growing of produce along the coast.
Just the sea was the highway. The Otto River there was unbridged, and some said unbridgeable. To the west, it was the same thing. So therefore, there was a great problem. And Woodford came to Mayaro, and they told him in no uncertain terms that it just will not work. What have you given us land for? We are producing, and we can't get this thing to Port of Spain or something. So anyway, Woodford went back to poor Spain, and he must have said, you know, these Mayaro people are something else, you know. However, he negotiated with the British Secretary of State, and in 1818, they started the Round Island steamer service for the collection of produce.
He also noted that Mayaro was the home to the country's first post office.
Mayaro owes a lot to the establishment of the post office. Now, this post used to come by sea to Radix, and it stopped only in 1914 because they opened the railway line.
Today, the village of Mayaro has a town and is the home to over 15,000 persons. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
Wayne Cunningham has a sport report right after the break.
I'm Natasha, and like most Trinbagonians, I love the beach. The beach can be fun, but we have to be tsunami smart and know the warning signs. You're at the beach and you feel the earth shake. Run. You see the water moving an unusual distance out from the shore. Run. You hear a strange roar from the sea. Run. If you experience any of these warning signs, run to higher ground. Be tsunami smart and know the natural warning signs. They could save your life.
A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, United States Agency for International Development, Caribbean Disaster and Emergency Management Agency, UWI Seismic Research Center, and the European Union.
The Trinidad and Tobago Boxing Board of Control's Boxing Bonanza held at Woodford Square in Port of Spain gave fight fans a glimpse of the local talent. One of the most impressive performances of the day came from professional, that should be, Princely Isidore. News 4 Sports caught up with the lightweight and his handlers, and Wayne Cunningham has the story.
Boxing Bonanza was a showcase of the nation's talent in the sport, hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Boxing Board of Control. The Woodford Square extravaganza featured both professionals and amateur pugilists, the up-and-comers and the well-established. Princely Isidore, fighting out of the Fine Line Fight Factory, put on a show for the audience when he faced Revlon Lake. Here is a look at the action. The lightweight fighter gave us some insight into his training regime.
Well, everything is basically encompassed around vigorous training. You know, my coach here is always here with me, always just be behind me diligently. I just try to do my part and he does his part, and usually that's how we get where we are right now. On a day-to-day basis, basically, it's usually running from a 3 to 3.5 hour span. You know, it could come from anything from bag work to speed work, agility training, we have sparring, and all those different things that encompass what we usually do on a day-to-day basis.
Four-time world champion Ria Ramnarine is an integral part of the Fine Line Fight Factory, and we got an update on her activities in the ring as well as ringside.
I am one of the instructors at our gym. Unofficially, I do a lot of work with my coach, so I'm really learning the ropes from him, Bart Ramutaratas. Our guy who just won, Princely Isidore. I think he's one of the best prospects in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's an honor for me actually to be working beside him. And I think that feeling is mutual. Working with Princely also, it helps me strengthen up on my weak points.
The man who brings it all together at Fine Line is Shian Bharat Ramuta, and his philosophy is quite simple.
I always ask them for the double D's, discipline and dedication. Those are the two cornerstones of being a good fighter. Sometimes you have a fighter who is not so talented, but they're very disciplined and dedicated, and you will get a good fighter. Sometimes you have a fighter who is talented but not so disciplined, you still get a good fighter. But when you have a fighter who is talented and have the discipline and dedication, then you got a great one on your hand. And I think here with Mr. Isidore, we got a great one on our hand. I've got Rhea here, who is a very, very good fighter, we know. World champion, 4-time world champion. She's a very good fighter, right? But I think I got a great one next to me here. He's very disciplined, very dedicated, and he's got the talent.
Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
More news after the break. Stay with us.
You will see how we have been retasked with a newly equipped CSI division and data systems that not only put crime fighting logistics at our fingertips, but those of CSI units throughout the world. And you will see how our police service has been reborn with a new sense of pride, a new sense of duty, and a new sense of community service that demonstrates that protect and serve means we are really here to protect and serve you, and to do it with pride. Each of us has chosen to serve, to do public service, to be here for you in some of life's most terrifying and saddest moments, to listen, to help, to be there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our hearts and minds will never close.
Welcome back. The requirements of a female leader of government who is in a senior position such as that of Prime Minister may be somewhat different from that of a male leader. This was a general consensus following a discussion headed by GISL CEO Mr. Andy Johnson on what qualifies to be legitimate criticisms of a Prime Minister. Verna Barth reports.
Lecturer at the Department of Language and Linguistics at UWI St. Augustine, Murl Hodge, says legitimate criticisms of a Prime Minister are confined to decisions or actions that are taken which may directly impact the nation. She adds that it should not necessarily involve the personal traits of the individual. Ms. Hodge was speaking with the GISL CEO, Mr. Andy Johnson.
Legitimate criticism of a Prime Minister or anybody in leadership or anybody in the public eye has to be to do with policies, and then perhaps at the personal level, perhaps any kind of behavior in public that will bring their office into disrepute. But you can't have big men and women talking about the person's shoes and whether the person has the right to dance or person singing and things like that. It has to be restricted to actions and ideologies that the person has displayed as the person holding the office.
The topic of whether the Prime Minister's gender should be used as a handicap was also discussed, where Dr. Sheila Rampersad, who is also a newspaper columnist, says the needs of women can be quite different as it relates to their appearance.
Women, as we know, are assessed in large measure by how they look.
That's the point he was making.
Right, so that if your hair is out of place, and as you were saying, a man can have a low cut, for example, similar to yours. You don't need to do much to that in order to make a public appearance. Women, however, are different, right? So unless you carry a haircut like Minister Vuna St. Rose Graves, right? So you need a certain kind of investment in your physical appearance that men do not need in the same way.
Dr. Rampersad adds that women are subjected to a different level of scrutiny by the general public compared to men. As a result, she says more attention is paid to how a woman appears as a Prime Minister.
We see people on TV, people are looking at us now, and the sort of scrutiny that say Merle and I might be subjected to in a physical way, in this very same discussion, in this very same program, may not be the same kind of scrutiny to which you are subjected as a man. So that we all do it, we all look at TV, we all look at people making public appearances, we talk about their dress, whether it is nice, whether it is not nice, or the shoes was nice today, or you're wearing flats as opposed to heels, or the hair was nicely done today, I didn't like it yesterday, it probably had too much mousse yesterday. We make these sorts of assessments, but then deny, in a sense, that we do it. So that the Prime Minister is subjected to that kind of scrutiny, and she is subjected to that kind of scrutiny by the same people who do not want her to invest in how she looks.
Verna Barth, News 4.
Stay tuned to TV4 for that panel discussion with Mr. Johnson at a later date in its entirety. Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Bless. Yeah. You ready?
1962, the dawn of a new era for Trinidad and Tobago.